Hello and welcome to the webinar. Today we're talking about shoulder control. And, a lot of us actually never really even get to shoulder control. A lot of people you see riding around are actually really sitting on the horse with their fingers crossed, hoping for the best. And for anyone that's ever been on a horse that's moved sideways at speed, you'll know that the horse doesn't necessarily follow its nose. And so that's why shoulder control is so important. So it's really important, that we take control of all 4 feet. But you have to take control either of the front or the back first so that you can take independent control of both sets of feet. And what I mean by that is we can't control 2 of the feet without being able to stop the other 2 from moving. So that's what shoulder control is all about. It's about taking control of the first 2 feet, which I always use the shoulder control before the hindquarter control, and I'll explain why I do that during this webinar today. So I have a really interesting exercise that I get riders to do often when they first start with me in a clinic or something. And I draw big sort of figure 8 or squiggly lines in the sand in the arena. And I get them to ride that line. And the first time they ride it, I tell them just to put the left-hand side of the bit over the line. So as they're riding, they have to make sure that the left-hand side of the bit, where they can see it, touch it, is going directly over the top of the line. And it's very interesting to watch them ride that. Then I ask them to get just the middle of the horse's neck. So they look at the horse's neck, and the middle of the horse's neck should go directly over the line. And the third time I get them to ride it, I ask them to ride their belly button over the line. You'll see people do this. Go and try it yourself. But you'll find the first time you ride it that you're doing tons of adjustments, having to, micromanage the horse the whole time. I'll move a little bit this way, a little bit this way. And the second time you ride it, it's a little bit less. It really is a little bit less. You come down to the neck and it's easier to ride that. The third time you ride it, it's really quite simple. Now what we're doing with that exercise is we're moving from riding the nose of the horse to riding the feet. So basically, most people are riding around on the nose of the horse. So they're pointing the horse in a direction they want it to go, and they're crossing their fingers, and they're hoping that it goes that way. And what you'll find is you constantly need to readjust the horse. So by getting back to the shoulders and taking control of the shoulders, we're halfway there. We've got control of the front feet. Then we can take control of the hindquarters, and then we can really ride our belly button. Okay. So some people sort of think, well, some people take control of the hindquarters first, and that you can also do that. But the problem with that is, for me, is that disengaging the hindquarters, which is what you need to do to move the hindquarters independently of the shoulders. And by disengaging, I mean where the horse steps across behind, like one hind foot in front of the other foot. It's quite a big movement with their hips, and that's quite difficult for some horses, especially unfit horses. And if you watch horses in the wild or in the paddock, and you watch them change direction, they always change direction with their shoulders. They move their shoulders around to face you. So if you have a horse out in the paddock and it's facing away from you and you call it, it's going to move its shoulders around to face you. Go and have a look at that when you're in the paddock. Next time you're watching your horse in the paddock, have a look at that. Then go onto YouTube and have a look at some of the horsemanship videos where they're working horses in the round pen or something and getting them to turn and face. And look at how often they actually get the horse to turn and face them by moving the hindquarters away. The shoulders stay still and the hindquarters move away. And what I find with that is that it is very energy expensive, and for an untrained horse, it can really do them some damage, I think, doing all that disengaging with the hindquarters. So I like to really take control of the shoulders first. And the way we do that is with this shoulder control. So I always call the head and neck of the horse is like the handbag of the horse. And I'm not interested in riding the head and neck. I want to ride the front feet and the back feet, and I want to get those two as close together as I can. The head and neck, I want to set the head. I want the horse to adopt an automatic posture. And the reason I want the horse to do that is because by lowering its head and being relaxed and coming close to the vertical, the horse is able to round its back. If a horse can round its back, then it can elevate its shoulder. If it can elevate its shoulder, it can then get its hindquarter underneath it. So just by doing that simple give to the bit exercise that we talked about last time, the horse is able to be soft in the bridle and relaxed. It's able to get into the engagement zone. I find that give to the bit is the best way to start building that bubble of communication with your horses, and it keeps you nice and safe. And then once that becomes an automatic response, I get on the horse, I pick up the rein, the horse is soft, relaxed, and around and soft, then I start taking control of the shoulders. Now, what I'm doing with the shoulder control is basically connecting in the horse's head the rein with the foot. So the horse thinks when the rein moves, the foot moves. So the horse becomes a bit like a puppet. So I open the rein, so this is my right rein, I open the right rein, the right foot steps right. I also want to be able to close the rein on the neck and have the right foot step left. So with the first lesson that the horse learned, which was give to the bit, where the horse learned to be round and soft and lift its back up, what the horse is doing then is his neck and head, he's in that posture that he carries it as that in self-carriage. Okay, so then once that's an automatic response and the horse is in self-carriage, I can now start to direct the feet. The give to the bit is not one of those lessons that you teach one day and the horse knows it forever. To give to the bit, you're always coming back to that lesson, because every time you teach something new, you're going to be introducing something else, and the horse is going to be reinforcing all of that foundation work, but especially that give to the bit work. So I was actually doing a voiceover of a student's hindquarter video this morning, and what was really interesting to see was that I'd seen a video of hers from like a week ago, and she'd shown me some shoulder control under saddle, and it was good, it was very nice. But what I noticed once she'd started the hindquarter control, so at the beginning of the video the horse's head was coming up, it was getting a little bit confused, but by the end of the video it was like 100 times better than it was at the end of the last video before she'd started teaching the hindquarter control. So, you know, the horse went through this learning curve, but at the end it came out so much better. And I think what happens sometimes, you know, we start to teach things and horses do go through these learning curves, and the horse gets really good at what we're teaching. We think, oh, great, I've taught it. And we put the horse away and we come out the next day and it doesn't know it. And we just haven't persevered long enough with it. So what we should have done, the horse would get good, and then it would seem to lose it a bit. Then it'll get good again, and then it will seem to lose it a bit, and then it'll get really good, and then it's probably got it. Now, how many times this happens depends really on how complicated the lesson is. So if we just teach and give to the bit, and give to the bit's a really simple lesson, so your horse might only have a couple of curves. But when you get on, it becomes a bit harder for the horse, and that's another level of emotion. So you might go through a few more learning curves when you get on. Then you get to shoulder control. And so you'll have the same thing. Your horse will go through some learning curves, probably with both sides of the shoulder control. The first one I teach is what I call same rein, same foot. So let's say we're going to the right with the horse. What I do is open the rein, and I want the right foot to step right. So we can teach this from the ground first, obviously, and then under saddle. If you imagine a clock under the horse's chest, if the horse is walking straight forward, the front feet are stepping to about 12 o'clock, just either side of 12 o'clock. When we start shoulder control, we want the front feet to be able to step also around the clock. So if it's the right front, we want the right front to be able to step to 12 o'clock straight forward. Same rein, same foot, we're going to also be able to step to 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and when we're on board, 3 o'clock. but not until we're on board, because horses, it's very hard to teach that 3 o'clock step left, step right from the ground, because you're sort of in the way and the horse isn't going to want to step on you. It's quite easy to teach. The 12 o'clock is straightforward, and then the 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock are easy to teach. So you want the horse walking forward around you, just as you were doing with give to the bit. You should be standing at the horse's shoulder with your hand across your chest, so that you're walking forward with the horse. You need to be careful here that you do stay nice and back towards the shoulder, because later we're going to step forward with the other part of the shoulder control exercise, and we're going to use that as a cue as well. So stay back at the horse's shoulder and open the rein away from the shoulder. So the horse is going around you, let's say in about a 10-meter circle, stepping to about 12:30. So it's just around in a circle. 12 would be straightforward, so 12:30, 1 o'clock. I want you to open the rein away from the neck and watch that right front, and when it steps to 2 o'clock, release and reward the horse, and then keep going around. And quite quickly the horse becomes like a puppet, and it's aware of when that rein opens and when it's by its neck. So what the horse learns is the reins are here, and if the rein opens, it needs to move this way to catch up. So we're not touching the other rein at all. We're doing this one rein at a time from each side of the horse first, from the ground. So the same thing on the left side of the horse. This time your left hand will be across your chest. You're standing at the left shoulder, walking forward. You want to hold that rein more or less at the angle it's going to be at if you're riding. So imagine you're sitting on the horse. Imagine where your hand would be, and then look at that angle that goes down to the bit, and try and hold the rein up at that angle. You're going to still stay quite close to the bit, about this far from the bit. So don't let the rein get too long, because otherwise the horse, your rein gets released and then you pick up pressure and it's a little bit vague for the horse. The closer you are to the bit, the more clear you can be. But what I'm saying is you don't want to pull the horse's head up. So you don't want to do any movement that you can't do under saddle. So you want to keep that rein more or less at the same angle as it will be when you're riding. Don't pull it up, and don't try and pull the horse's head down, because you can't do either of those things from the saddle. So keep it really simple for the horse. And by doing that, keeping it really simple for the horse, we skip a step or two in the training there. So the horse doesn't need to relearn anything. Because if we get on the horse and the rein's at a completely different angle, then the horse has to relearn the whole exercise from the saddle, which is very difficult for the horse, or more difficult than it needs to be. So simply by holding your hand at that angle, you skip that step for the horse, which makes it much simpler for the horse. If you have a very tall horse, I'm sorry, and you get a rather sore arm, because you have to hold it up very high. But it is well worth it for your horse's ease of learning. All right, so that's our first one. So from both sides of the horse, from the ground, the right foot is going to be stepping to 12, 1 and 2 o'clock, and the left foot is going to be stepping to 12, 11 and 10 o'clock. Okay, so once you have those, then it's time to think about reverse arc. So what we said earlier was we want the horse's front feet to be able to go all around the front of the clock there. So we need to be able to do this as well. We need to be able to get the horse to step his right front in front of his left front. So forward and across. Now, because the horse has already learned give to the bit, let's start on the left-hand side of the horse. If we're on the left-hand side of the horse and the horse is circling around us, and say about a 10-meter circle, he's bent to the left. Yes? We can open the left rein, we can get the horse to step to 10 o'clock. What we need to be able to do now is to close the rein on the horse's neck, but keep the horse bent to the left and have him step across with his left front, across in front of his right front, staying bent to the left, but moving to the right. And that we call reverse arc. So what the horse now is learning is that if the rein goes close to his neck, then he needs to move himself this way to catch up. So before, what the horse was doing, the rein opened, the horse moved this way to catch up with his feet, not his head. And now he knows the reins should be here. If the rein closes on his neck, he needs to move that way to put himself in between the reins. So now is the time from the ground, and that's why it's so much easier to teach these things from the ground, because you get all these extra cues. And the big one here is your body language. So before we were standing at the horse's shoulder, now we're going to actually move forward a bit so that we're standing more in the center of the horse's neck, and turn into the horse so we can look at the horse's neck. So what I do is I move the rein up first, so the rein actually touches the neck and the horse can feel that touch of the rein on the neck. And then I move forward and move into the horse. Now most horses will understand that that's a move away from your space. Some horses, often foals or horses that are a little bit on top of you, don't actually know this exercise, and sometimes in really extreme cases it's actually a good idea to put them in the round pen, teach them outside turns if you really have that problem of the horse sort of coming into your space a lot. Is because the horse is not being disrespectful or anything, the horse just has not learned this lesson, which is to move away when I move towards you. So it's something that the horse does need to learn. So let's go back to where we are. We're standing on the left-hand side of the horse. The horse is bent to the left. When we can get the horse to do same rein, same foot, which is step to 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and 10 o'clock. And now we're keeping the same bend in the neck. We're getting the horse to step to 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 2 o'clock with that left front. Remember, everything we teach, I try and break it down to just one foot. So the only foot that I'm talking to here is the left front. Now it may be that the whole horse moves sideways. So it may be that the whole horse is moving his hindquarters to the right as well. And that's fine. I'm not even going to look at the hindquarters. I'm just going to look at that one foot. And if that one foot steps across in front of his right foot, then I'm going to release and reward on that. And a lot of people say, oh, well, when do I release, and do I release each step? And the thing is, we're shaping this behavior. We know the end result. The end result that we want is to be able to get that left front to step to 2 o'clock. So a front of and across, with the horse remaining soft and relaxed and in frame and bent left. So that's what we want. That's the end result we want. But we don't start with that. We start getting a little bit of what we want, and we shape that behavior. We build on that behavior. So if the horse is walking straight forward and it's stepping to 12 o'clock, if we got the horse to step to 12:30, that would be a little bit of what we want. So that we would release and reward. So a good pattern to set yourself up with is to have the horse doing same rein, same foot. Always start with go forward around me. Have the horse going around you, same rein, same foot. Open the rein a little bit and move the horse in and out. Then, so let's say you're making the circle smaller, the horse is stepping to about 10 o'clock. You can then put the rein on the neck and get the horse to step to 11 o'clock and reward the horse for that. Then next time we might get the horse to take one step to 12 o'clock. We'll reward the horse for that. So I'm only going to get one step at a time. So it's a real puppet movement. And I reward each time the horse does it. I release and I scratch the horse and I tell him it's good boy each time. And then pretty soon you're getting 12:30 and you're rewarding for that. And the horse is then starting to make that mental connection. And when the rein touches my neck and she moves forward and she moves into me a little bit, I move across like this and I get rewarded for that. So it's a really simple exercise for the horse, and they catch on pretty quickly. And as soon as they've got that pattern sorted, then you can start asking for 2 steps. So then you get the horse in that step to 12:30 and then 1 o'clock, and then release and open the rein and get the horse to move around you again. And the next time you might ask for 3 steps. You might get to 1:30. And we build up on that. So do one side at a time. This whole time I'm just holding one rein. You just need to watch your off rein, that it doesn't get too long, that your horse doesn't step in it. I use split reins. It makes it a bit simpler. But don't hold on to the other rein. You don't need to direct the horse. You don't need to do anything else. You just need to concentrate on the side that you're on and that foot that you're working. And if you do concentrate that much, your focus really helps the horse get inside the bubble. You know, as soon as you start trying to control all the horse's feet, it becomes quite blur for the horse. But if you're really just concentrating on that left front for the time being, when it takes a step in the direction you want, you're like, oh yeah, that's great. And you release and you praise the horse, and the horse goes, oh, I can step my left front to the right. That's easy. I can do that. And the horse actually becomes really confident. And so it is a nice, simple lesson for the horse. Then you want to go to the other side and teach exactly the same thing, but with the other rein. And remember, your body language is really important. So it's really important where you're standing, because it's very helpful for the horse. So that's why it's important to distinguish between same rein, same foot, where you're back by the horse's shoulder and you're walking forward and you have the rein across you, to reverse arc, where the rein is on the neck and the horse can feel the rein on the neck, and you have turned to face the horse and you're walking in towards his shoulder. And some people say to me, oh, do you push the horse? And I really don't want to push the horse, because you can't do that from the saddle. Occasionally, if you've got a horse that is finding it very difficult, and especially a horse that is used to really crowding you could do that just to start, just to get that first step or two, just give a mean move that way, and the horse goes, oh, okay, you mean move that way. The horse doesn't want to be pushed around. You know, you've got to understand what we're always trying to do is work off less and less and less pressure. The maximum amount of pressure here we could use is rein and giving the horse a physical push. So that's absolute top pressure. So the next time you come down, you're going to have to think, okay, how could I lessen that pressure? Maybe I could just touch the horse with my hand. That would be less pressure than pushing the horse. And just keep coming down and down and down, because what is going to happen is the horse is going to learn the pattern, because you don't suddenly just push the horse. You slowly lift the rein, you touch the rein on the neck, you're moving into the horse, and this comes 3 seconds later, the push. So the horse will learn the pattern, and pretty quickly, if you give the horse the opportunity, the horse will see that you're moving the rein in that direction, and the horse will reverse arc away from that rein, because it knows the pressure is coming. And that's self-carriage, where you don't actually have to apply the pressure, where you don't have to keep correcting the horse, keep directing the horse, keep telling the horse where to move and how to move. The horse sees the rein coming, knows the pattern, it will move in reverse arc until you move that rein somewhere else and ask it to move somewhere else. So right there we have both directions from the ground. Next thing to do is to get up on the horse, those of you that are riding the horse obviously, and do exactly the same thing under saddle. And as I said earlier, under saddle is the place to get the two other times on your clock, which is 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, which are hard to get on the ground because you're standing so close to the horse and the horse doesn't want to step on you. But once you're under saddle, you can really do that. So let's say we're doing, this is my ride, your left, sorry about that. I'm not very good at left and right, so I'm going to have to do it my way. Let's say that you open the right rein and you just watch that shoulder. And when it really steps to 3 o'clock, just release and reward the horse. So you can set your horse up in a little circle, 10-meter circle or 20-meter circle, whatever you like, and really open that rein, and the horse will step across and release when it does that. When you see that shoulder really open and step. What might happen when you open the rein, make sure you really do, make it really obvious. You feel like a bit of a turkey on top of the horse going like this. But remember, you're training the horse. You're not in a dressage test. You're training the horse. Whatever makes it easier for the horse, because this movement pretty quickly becomes this movement, because you're teaching a good pattern and the horse learns the pattern. The horse doesn't need this exaggeration for long. It's for a short time while it's learning to make it easier. And so what might happen when you first start is you might open the rein and hold it and hold pressure until you see that shoulder step to the right. what might happen first is the horse might move its hindquarters. Okay, so I want you to just really think about the movement that you're looking for. And the movement you're looking for is that right foot to step right. A nice, good step right. If the horse is moving its hindquarters, just ignore that movement. The horse will eventually move that right foot right and then release and reward. And you've got to let the horse work it out, because you can't stop the horse from moving its hindquarters, not without adding all sorts of other confusing pressure for the horse, which we don't want to do. The horse doesn't want to move its hindquarters because it's much harder work than moving its shoulders, as we discussed at the beginning. So really the horse's preference would be to move its shoulders. So wait until it does and then reward that. And then get going again around in your circle, your 10 meter, 20 meter circle, and then ask again. And what you'll find quite quickly is the horse starts to say, okay, open the rein, step right. Open the rein, step right. And you'll feel that puppet. So once you've got that, then you've got, so on the right, you've got 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I want you to start on the right from the saddle, getting the 11 and 10 o'clock. So an easy way to do this, because it can be, the horse is now having to relearn because you're no longer standing there on the ground, helping the horse with your body language to move away from the rein. Now you're on board, and so the horse is missing a cue there. So it's more difficult than the same rein, same foot for the horse. The reverse arc is a little bit more difficult. So we have to find other ways we can help the horse learn this. A really good way is if you have a friend that can stand on the ground and be the person you were. So just have somebody on the right-hand side of the horse if you're working that right rein to start with, and then what you do is you cue it, and if the horse doesn't move, your friend simply walks towards the horse's neck, and if necessary puts a hand on the horse's neck just to help the horse understand that. And as you go along, get your friend to be less and less close to the horse, so a little bit further away. And so the horse then learns that pattern. It's the rein comes first, then the person comes in. So the horse will learn the pattern, and you won't need the person on the ground. That's one way of doing it. Another thing that will help you is to move your active rein, so your reverse arc rein, if it's this one, to move it further up the neck. And that just gives the horse a little bit more of a difference. Usually when we're on the ground, because we've moved further up the neck, our rein is also further up the neck. So think about the position that the rein was in when you were on the ground and try and replicate that position when you're in the saddle. So usually what it means is moving your hand maybe halfway up the neck and then across. You really want to think about this like a puppet. So if you were moving a puppet's foot, you'd have pressure and it would release when the foot came down. Yeah, that's what you want to do. So you hold the pressure until the foot and then release it. We can string the steps together later, but just getting the horse to get this idea first is really important. So those are two ways that will help you. The third way is a really good way, but you'd need an appropriate riding area. But if you're lucky enough to have an arena that has a fence, or a round pen is also useful, but a round pen is harder because the angle is quite steep. So let's say you have a nice long fence. Put the horse on the fence. So let's say you're riding the right rein. So the fence is on your right. I want you to just bend the horse to the right and then ask for reverse arc. And the horse will easily reverse arc away from the fence. So you're riding down the long side, the fence is on the right, just bend the horse just slightly to the right and then ask the horse to reverse arc. So move the right foot to the left. And what you'll find is the horse steps out of the track and away from the fence. And then you can open the rein and teach same rein, same foot back to the fence. And then go straight, then bend the horse to the right, the outside, and towards the fence. Ask it to step away from the fence and reverse arc. And then open the rein and get the horse to step back to the fence. You get a nice little sort of serpentine loops off the fence that way. And the fence just acts as a wall, basically. The horse is very unlikely to walk into the fence, And so it just shows the horse, yeah, I've bent you this way, but I'm asking you to step away from that. And that works really well. What you don't want to do, and just a warning there, I love that exercise, but you do have to be a little bit careful, because if your horse isn't ready for that exercise, what it might do is lift its head up over the fence and then reverse arc. And so what you're then teaching is for the horse to lift its head up, which you obviously never wanted to do. So if you feel that your horse isn't quite ready, like let's say you start that exercise under saddle and your horse does lift its head up over the fence, rather than persevering with that, just jump off and do the same exercise in the same place from the ground. And for horses that are a bit on top of you, that you have difficulty doing a reverse arc on the ground with, it's a great exercise in the arena or in the round pen to put yourself between the horse and the fence and then reverse arc. Again, it's harder in the round pen because the round pen's round, so the horse has to do a much bigger reverse arc step than it does on a straight fence. But if you've got a nice straight fence and you put yourself next to the fence and then the horse in the open and you ask for reverse arc, most horses will quite easily step away from the fence and make a big fuss of the horse then. Oh, look, it's taken the step across with its front foot, and make a big fuss, and say, oh, that's quite easy, I can do that. And then really obviously open the rein, bring the horse back to the fence, and then ask again. So you're really building this puppet. Wherever that rein goes, your foot goes. And what happens is that sort of really simple exercise where the horse gets praised a lot because it's really doing the right thing. So often, little tiny things, but it's doing the right thing. And what that does is it really builds your bubble of communication, because suddenly this horse is getting all this feedback about simple little things, like where it's moving its feet. And when you think about that and compare that to a young horse, or education of a young horse that's getting miles under the belt, where it's probably getting no feedback. It's probably trotting, round and round and round and round in circles and getting all these miles under its belt, but it's getting very little feedback about what it's doing right. So, an education of a young horse is usually also quite an unfit horse. So rather than just building fitness, we can build fitness later. Let's really concentrate on getting these good patterns in the horse's head, so that when we do want a fit horse, and when we do have, a lot of time and a lot of energy from the horse to do much longer sessions, let's have a horse that really understands these foundational exercises, so that we can then go up to the next level with that horse. So imagine a horse that has that really good same rein, same foot and reverse arc. Let's say you want to take that horse and do dressage with that horse. Imagine how easy it's going to be to teach a pirouette. So you can already get this step to 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and you can already get this step to 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock. So a pirouette is going to be really easy. Same thing if you're a Western rider and you're teaching a spin. That's exactly what you want. What usually happens with a spin is the horse goes like this and doesn't actually take a nice clean step across in front. That is what you want. You want that step, and you want this big open step. And where the horse is just moving its shoulders and not its hindquarters. And because the horse has learnt shoulders first, that gives us a starting point to teach independent control of the hindquarters. I'll just explain why that is. So let's say we want to control the hindquarters. Most people control the hindquarters by sticking their leg on the horse. And what happens is the horse wants to move away from all of that pressure, so the whole horse moves sideways. And that's very useful later when we teach lateral work, and I do keep that, put one leg on the horse for the whole horse to move sideways. Very useful. But I don't want it to do that. All I want it to do, say, is engage its hindquarters. So maybe I just want to teach travers. Or maybe I just want to, travers. Travers is a good example, because there we just move the hindquarters. So it's a 3-track where the hindquarters come into the middle of the arena. So if you just want to move the hindquarters, you can't do that unless you can stop the shoulders moving. So that's why I go for shoulder control first, because It's easier for the horse to learn shoulder control. It makes a lot more sense for us as riders to control the front of the horse than it does control the back of the horse to start with. And a lot of people never get past the shoulder control. They don't even bother with the hindquarter control, which is absolutely fine. If you don't want collection, if you don't want to do flying changes and all that sort of thing, then you really don't need it. You quite happily ride around on the shoulders because it gives you great direction of control. But when you do decide that you want to do lateral work or you want to do flying changes, then you really need that independent hindquarter control. And you can't get independent hindquarter control unless you can stop the shoulders moving. So this is what this will give us. So let's imagine we're going to do travers down the long side. We're riding down the long side. We've got the fence on the right. Our left rein is going to be holding the shoulders in the track, in reverse arc, isn't it? And the right rein is going to be engaging the hindquarters. And we'll discuss that in a later webinar when we talk about hindquarter control. But if our right rein is controlling our hindquarters and we lift that and the hindquarters move, unless we've got something to control the shoulders, to keep the shoulders in the track, the whole horse is going to move to the side. So that's why it's really important that you get the shoulder control first and then add the hindquarter control to that. And you've got two independent things. That's the shoulders, hindquarters, get them really close together and you've got collection. So it's a great foundation lesson. I really encourage you to go and start that on the ground. You can even do it with a horse that hasn't yet worn a bridle. You can do it in a bitless bridle. You can do it in a head collar if you want. But do go and give it a try. Get started with it. Thank you, and I will see you next week.